Thought Bubble Audio.
Look, up in the sky!
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Welcome to Beer with Geeks with Tim and Frank.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
I am Iron Man.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You're a wizard, Harry.
A couple of guys with a couple of beers and a whole lot of pop culture nostalgia.
Make it so, number one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
Named the dog Indiana.
Life finds a way.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Now sit back and crack open a cold one, because it's time for Beer with Geeks.
It comes in paints.
Shaken, not stirred.
Great Scott!
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Hi, and welcome to Beer with Geeks, where two geeks geek out with beer. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, is my man who loves trilogies that wrap up. Frank, how are you today?
I'm feeling a big sense of closure. I'm feeling a big sense of completeness and wholeness. I'm feeling good. How are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm feeling quite well. I am feeling many of those same things, you know, just as a general human being. But also, Frank, because we saw the Star Wars.
We saw the newest Star Wars.
We saw the newest Star Wars. Frank, what did you think of the newest Star Wars? Is going to be the main question that I ask you over the course of the show. But the first question I'm going to ask you is, what are you drinking?
Well, as it is Christmas, and at Christmas you tell the truth. I'm enjoying a good Chimay Rouge, Chimay Red. This is one of my absolute all-time favorite Belgian beers, brewed by monks in Belgium. It is fantastic. It is delicious. It is everything that I want out of a beer. So I'm enjoying one of my favorite beers because it's Christmas. This show is coming out a little bit early because we wanted to get it to you before Christmas, so you have time to listen to it while you're not, with your family. Those of you who celebrate Christmas. So celebrating a little bit early. But what about you?
Oh, Frank. Well, in honor of Star Wars and not Christmas, I am drinking a Devil's Trumpet Brewing Company Space Caravan.
Whoa, I don't know this one.
Okay.
Devil's
really?
Trumpet?
I've had this on the show before, I think.
Maybe. It doesn't. Space Caravan doesn't sound familiar. Devil's Trumpet sounds vaguely familiar, but tell me about it.
They're from Indiana originally and available at my local brewery store, which is not a real thing. It is an American IPA. It's got a light amber. It's like a light amber look, fruity, malty, nice hop. All the things that make IPAs.
Sure.
But I got it because Space Caravan. IPA is not normally my go-to,
right?
But this one isn't. This one isn't so hoppy that you're like, ugh, I need a drink to cleanse my mouth of the hoppiness.
Sure. You don't need to water. Go one for one with water to feel like a human.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Give me all the water, please.
Right,
I need to feel like a human again.
Right.
Yeah. Space Caravan.
Nice.
Space Caravan. Space.
Yeah. It's not
garbage.
often that you endorse an IPA, so that's meaningful.
I'm here for you that way. Mm-hmm.
I like it. Well, listen, we have both seen the Rise of Skywalker twice now.
Mm-hmm.
Lucky men that we are. So
we saw them within hours of each other.
That's true. We saw it for the first time on Thursday night, like an hour apart.
Mm-hmm.
And then we saw it again on Friday, and as my screening was ending, your screening was beginning.
Like, literally, you're like, I'm walking out right now, and I'm like, well, I'm in my seat.
Yeah, it was great. So both times we saw it basically at the same time.
Yes.
Which is just weird friendship vibes. But there you go. So
weird friendship vibes.
Weird friendship vibes. That's what we have.
Mm-hmm.
So I really, really liked it. I'm not going to go so far as to say I loved it, but I really, really liked it.
All right, now I'm gonna do two things here. I'm gonna say, are we gonna do 1 or 2 episodes on Rise of Skywalker?
Let's do. I think we're gonna do one, probably sort of bonus-sized 80-page giant, if you will.
Okay, we could do that. I was thinking, what if we talked about on this episode, what if we just talked about Rise of Skywalker and maybe its relation to the new trilogy?
Yeah.
And then we could talk about its relation to Star Wars as a whole on a whole other episode.
Sure.
Is that possible?
I mean,
I don't know if that's possible.
I think we're going to do lots of episodes about this in the future anyway. So my thinking is, let's just have a let's just chat about the movie. Let's just talk about like the stuff we want to talk about. And honestly, I've been thinking about this, especially the second time through. I was like, oh, I want to talk about that with Tim. I want to talk about that. 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 And there's way too much to talk about. I think what we need to do is do a commentary when it comes out.
Absolutely. I am 100% on board for that. We never did a commentary on...
I don't think we did Last
Jedi.
I don't even know
either.
If we did. Did we do The Force Awakens?
I don't know. It's been a long time since we've done a commentary.
It's been a long time. Yeah, the Star Wars commentary we did all before The Force Awakens came out. And then I don't know if we've done one since. We did Batman 89. We've done other commentaries, but I don't know if we've done a Star Wars one.
Well, it looks like we've got something.
So my point being, we have plenty to talk about in this movie. So the way I see it, let's just talk about the movie like as a new movie, the way we talk about new movies.
All right. First off, this is something that I definitely wanted to talk about when I was watching it. Dose is everyone's got a feeling. That's their big word. This go around, you know, like Rey says it first, I have a feeling, and then Poe says I have a feeling, and then Jaina says I have a feeling, and then Poe says it again.
Finn, not Poe.
Finn, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. No, Poe's got no feelings, except lusty feelings or something.
Hey,
I don't know.
Yeah.
So here's my question: if we're going to talk about it all together, was the purpose of The Force Awakens that there was going to be a lot more Force users out there, and the reason that Poe even snaps out of his stormtrooperness?
Finn.
Did I say Poe again?
Yeah.
Bye. What is happening to me?
Did I say Poe again? Yeah. But okay, yeah. There's something going on in the Force.
That snaps these stormtroopers out of their conditioning.
Yeah, I think that might be something to that. I definitely was getting that vibe. That actually, I took it a little bit of a more, a less interesting way. Is the way I thought of it. I like your idea better, but the way I was starting to think was like, are they when they're like stealing these children, right? Because we saw it. Post Finn said it in The Force Awakens, and now Jaina said, you got me doing it, and then Jaina said it in this film that she was like stolen as a child and
yes,
drafted, right? Conscripted. I had the thought when she said it that like, is the First Order like finding Force sensitive children and turning them into stormtroopers? Like that was where my brain went, but I like your idea better that there's something happening in the Force where like everybody, look, because the Force surrounds us and binds us and penetrates us. So what if like everyone's got a little bit of the Force, everyone's got a little low-level midichlorian count, right?
That's right.
But what if something happened in The Force Awakens or at that time that sort of everyone came online a little bit and everyone's got just a teeny bit of Force sensitivity if they listen, if they tap into it.
I like that idea too. I mean, you could really smush them together. I don't think that the First Order was conscripting, drafting, poeing. I don't think that they were only taking Force sensitive kids because there are like, so if you go to, I've read almost every one of the new Star Wars books, that are out there,
right.
For this in universe. So I just recently read the Phasma book.
Oh,
and
nice.
So like she is not Force sensitive. Like that whole book is about her like joining the First Order and blah 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 blah. And but she is not like strictly Force sensitive, and it makes no, like the whole book is about like becoming a stormtrooper, and they don't make any mention of that. So, but
yeah. So there you go. So that's why I like your idea better.
I think you could still ring it that way though. You could still like go in that direction. But yeah, I think that's kind of where they wanted to go originally, and so here's the thing. I really like Last Jedi, and I think like we should get that out there. Like, it's me, I'm a supporter. Like it's not a secret.
Right.
I really like Last Jedi. However, it doesn't fit in the context of its bookended movies now. Like some of it does. Like, they didn't flat out ignore things, or like some things move on. They don't mention it. It's been a while. Like whatever. That's okay. But it doesn't progress the characters tons from The Force Awakens. So Rise of Skywalker had to play a lot of catch up.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
So
that's right.
So
that's probably my biggest. If I have criticisms of this film, which I have some, that's probably the biggest criticism I have, is that there's a lot of catch up from Rise of Skywalker, from Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to talk mostly about the positives that I have, because I have more positives than negatives at this point. After the
Me
first
too.
viewing, you and I chatted immediately after the first viewing, as we did after The Last Jedi too. Called each other on the way home, and
because we're friends.
And we both were sort of, there's a few criticisms I have that are kind of like, my feeling at least was like, I don't like that I have these feelings. Like, I don't like that there are certain criticisms I have, and I wish I could explain them away or something.
Mm-hmm.
But from my perspective, for the second time I watched it, those things bothered me way less, because like I think it was on the first viewing, I had questions and I was like, how does this fit? Does it fit? The second time through, I felt like the story kind of, and I'm going to borrow a phrase a little bit from what I heard the Rebel Force Radio guys say and their analysis of it, but really the story, the plot, the story of this film was pretty linear and pretty direct, and the way they described it was like dominoes falling. One thing happens, and that causes the next thing to happen, causes the next thing to happen, and it was the second time through that I really saw how like boom, 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 A to B to C to D. The first time through, I was like, this is a little. It almost felt convoluted. Like, we're going here, we're going here, we're going there, we're going. I don't really see how these things connect. But the second time through, it really felt like it strung together. The thing was, it feels like JJ. This was almost 2 films worth of story in one film.
Yep.
Because it feels like he was sort of like, well, we took this and I like The Last Jedi as well. I was also a Last Jedi supporter. Overall, there were problems I had with it, but overall, I was like, no, this is not.
Sure.
I don't have the same issues with it that people do.
I have problems with every Star Wars movie.
Me too.
It's not.
Me too. So yeah, exactly. I criticize things because I love them.
That's right.
But this time it kind of
truly
felt
Italian
like,
that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It includes people. So I feel like The Last Jedi was this almost like a detour in the story, and JJ was like, okay, well, that was nice and that happened, but now we're going to come back to my story, and in order to do it, I have to do a lot of work. I have to do a lot of storytelling to bring us back sort of on track to the story I wanted to tell.
That's right.
And it feels like he was given license or even told to do that.
Yes, it did feel a little bit like here are all the things on the before JJ was brought in. It's like, here's all the things on the whiteboard.
Yeah,
we got to cover all these things. You cool with that?
Here's your checklist, right? Make sure everything in this fit them in however you want, but like somehow we gotta get these things in here. We gotta talk about Rey's lineage. We gotta have Rey and Kylo kiss. We gotta have like these things have to happen. In order for us to wrap up this trilogy and send it home.
That's right. Like the revelation of Rey as a Palpatine feels like that's like a Luke, I am your father moment.
Very much so.
Very much so. I should say, no, I am your father, because I'm a real Star Wars fan and I know what the line is.
There you go.
Don't at me, at Frank instead.
Hey! I know the line too.
Yeah. And so it's definitely a no, I am your father moment, which is a cliffhanger, and then you pick up the rest. And so the New York Times review, which was complimentary even, but it said, the review said, this is 5 hours of movie in 2 hours.
Yes.
It's 5 hours of plot in 2 hours, which may be your thing, but I feel like the 2 hour the 2 hour mark is also a Disney mandate. They're like, we got to do it. Like, we can't have a super long one. We got to make the most money out of this because we're worried. so you have to make it short.
Last Jedi was also really long, right? Like that's another thing they probably didn't want to like. We don't want to go even longer than that.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think the pace of this is rather like Return of the Jedi, where it's very intense at the beginning, and then it slows to a crawl, and then it picks back up again. I noticed it less the second
You know
time.
what? Yeah, the second time through, I actually think I disagree with. The first time we talked about it, you said that, and I agreed with it. But after seeing it the second time, I kind of disagree. I feel like it's pretty evenly paced and pretty quick paced the whole way through. Like there's a lot happening all the time. So I'm trying to remember, where do you feel like it slowed down? And it's okay if you don't, if you just have a feeling and if you have a feeling and you don't remember a specific. But
I would say
I didn't really feel that way as much the second time.
I would say about the time Chewie gets kidnapped.
Okay.
I would say that's pretty much about the time. That's pretty much about the time where it doesn't exactly connect. It doesn't exactly.
So when they're with
together.
Zori and they're wiping 3PO and all that stuff,
that's about where it starts to slow down. But
Okay.
I think the Zori stuff was very fast.
yeah, yeah.
That's a perfect example of a character like a Phasma or a Boba Fett that like doesn't get a lot to do but looked cool.
Yeah, I actually really liked that character.
I did too. Like I want to see more of Zori.
Same.
Actually, the back and forth at the end between Poe and Zori, the wordless like.
Oh
hey,
my god, that exchange! That just
I think it's one of my. I think that's one of my favorite Star Wars moments now.
it's certainly one of my favorite. Certainly one of my favorite Poe moments. Poe, I think, was
Absolutely.
more charming in this movie than he's been up until like to date.
No, I think it's because he had a clear direction, and because he was supposed to die in the first one, right?
Right.
But they liked Oscar Isaac so much that they were like, hang around.
Right.
Do some more stuff. But, and so they had to make him something. I had a friend who had a criticism that he's a little too much like Han Solo now. Like, oh, he's a spice runner, blah, 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 blah. But I don't care. That's kind of that's Star Wars. You take an archetype and you fit new names onto them. But I really loved that scene where he was like, they were like, you're a spice runner? He's like, were you a stormtrooper? Were you a scavenger? We could do this all night.
All day.
Like, yeah. Like,
I know. I loved it. I loved it. Yeah. No, I thought Poe was, and by when I say Poe, I mean Poe this time.
Yeah.
I really liked him this movie. I did feel like he didn't really learn his lessons from The Last Jedi, though.
I agree with that, where he's still like a little like, I don't know what to do. I'm a little confused. And I'm like, but that is what you should have learned last movie.
Yeah.
Although his plan of action is a little less like, just go in and kill everyone. Like he has a better plan this time, though not exactly. Because they still kind of get caught.
They still get like massacred. Like they're still like, I mean, I guess when the Emperor gets his supercharged lightning, there was no way that Poe could have expected that. But
Nope.
but still, it did sort of feel like he hadn't really learned the lesson Holdo was trying to teach him.
That is correct.
I did appreciate the reference to Holdo when they're like, oh, listen, that was 1 in a million. We're never gonna do that again.
Me too. I feel like that was actually one of the things that had to be on the whiteboard.
Probably.
Like because there was a lot of like, why don't you do that all the time? And I want to be like, because ships are really expensive.
Right,
and it's a suicide mission.
It's a suicide
and
mission,
like, yeah, and like there are lots of reasons why you shouldn't do that all the time.
I feel like there's a twofold thing there. I think one, you're absolutely right. It needed to be in the movie because they wanted to address it because that was sort of controversial. Holdo was a controversial character, so they wanted to address it. And two, I think they wanted to explain why they weren't going to do this again. Right, like because it does seem like, well, you did it once. Why couldn't you just crash a ship into the other ship again? Like, and
yeah, that's a great point. Yeah,
but they wanted to explain, like, well, all right, that was we might have written ourselves into a corner with that because now it's like just do it every time. It's like, well, if this superhero has this superpower, why don't they just use that all the time? Well, because it sort of would get real boring if they did it every time. So
that is
here's
correct.
a reason why they can't.
Sometimes Spider-Man has to run out of web fluid.
That's exactly right. So like you need to raise the stakes somehow. So they had to say like, listen, that was 1 in a million. That's never going to happen again. Let's just get that out of the way so that people wouldn't criticize it, saying like they could have just crashed a ship into the other ship and called it a day. And that left room for Finn and Jaina to do what they did with like attacking the control tower of the Star Destroyer with its own gun.
Yes, 100%. Oh, I got to talk about that. this is the first time we've ever been that close to a Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
Like, up close. And I just, like, couldn't stop taking it in.
It's
Because,
so cool.
Because, if you think about it, in the history of Star Wars, Star Destroyer started out as a 2-foot model.
Yes.
Or, like, a 4-foot model, however big it was. And now they're standing on what is essentially that model. You know what I mean? Like, that is crazy to me.
It's
that they
like
had to, like...
It's like when we got that close to the Death Star in the original Star Wars, right? Like on the surface of this thing.
That's right.
Except that we've had 42 years of looking at these things
from far away.
Away, and now we're real up close. I mean, even when we saw one in Rogue One, right? And we saw like a close-up shot of it, we were like, "Wow, look at all the detail on that Star Destroyer. That's so cool." And now we're literally walking on it.
That's right. It's the walking on, like the scale of, because you get the scale, but ships are ships on a screen. Like, you can only look so far, but for them to just be standing on it and how vast it truly, like, I was really taken, like, not aback, because that makes it sound like a bad thing, but it made me catch my breath.
Yeah.
Like, that was really, really neat. I loved that so much. And I loved the almost like horse race justification from The Last Jedi to then have them running on the horses in this one.
You know, I didn't think about that in that way, but that's kind of true. This is sort of a mirroring of that. Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
I liked even the in-movie explanation of, like, they were going to, the First Order was going to try and jam their speeders, but they couldn't because they didn't have speeders.
Yep. That was really, I liked that they, even so, like, that group of stormtroopers that's no longer stormtroopers, Jaina, and like all this group, like, I love their rejection of technology, because it to them represents part of, like, being in the First Order and their childhood and, like, all this stuff. So they're like bows and arrows and horses. That's not because they have to, it's because they, like, choose to reject that.
Back to basics, off the grid, like, yeah. But
I love that they use their information. I will always say that about Finn's character, that they always, he knows the stuff, and they always utilize that info. He's, like, necessary that way.
Yes.
I really like that. I actually really liked Finn in this movie, where I can't say that about the other two. He kind of annoys me in the other two movies.
Oh, I liked him a lot in The Force Awakens, but I was not thrilled with his storyline in The Last Jedi. I liked him a lot more in this film.
I am the opposite of that. He kind of got on my nerves. He was a little too excited, a little too big, like, just a little too. There was a little too much happening, and then I didn't love his story in Last Jedi, but I did like his arc conclusion with his battle with Phasma, because he's confronting the representation of, like, his grief and his pain and his childhood and, like, all this stuff. So I really liked that.
Agreed.
But I really liked what he did with his character. He was just reserved, and he like he was confident, and he knew what to do, and, like, he didn't overstep he didn't bypass his logic for emotion like he did, like he's done so many times before. Like, oh, emotions are new for me. And so, like, he's kind of, like, found this gap between the two of them. I really dug that. And I really want to I'd watch a movie or a television show with Jaina and Finn. Like, 100%.
Oh, absolutely I would. Which I kind of feel like we got a setup for.
Not only just possibly a setup for, but John Boyega did oh my God, I loved the people I work with video thing. And Naomi Aki, the woman who played Jaina, she says, "I'll see you real soon. I have a feeling."
Oh, nice. Yeah. I think she's getting a Disney Plus series, maybe with. I think it might be like the Jaina show with Lando being in it, with Finn being in it. You know, like I have a feeling that might be what's on the docket for her.
I think so too, just because that scene with Lando and Jaina felt a little forced. Like, here's Lando Calrissian, like the general that they all know. Like, we know who he is, 3PO.
Yeah,
like,
right.
You know, and she's just like, he's just sitting by himself, and she's like, "Where you from, General?" Like, what a weird question to ask somebody.
And then let's find out. Yeah, and he's
there's
like, "There's your pilot right there, right? There's your backdoor pilot."
Yep, right there. Let's find out, kid. Actually, I gotta say though, Billy D. Williams crushed it.
Still got it.
He still has. He came on screen. I was like, by God, he looks good.
I know.
He's 82 years old.
So good. Did you know that was him before he even took the mask off? Like when he when he shot that stormtrooper through the eye.
Yep.
And he was like, Leia sent me, come with me. I was like, yep, that's him.
Yep, 100% him.
Yep.
I just knew it. Well, I mean, I know Billy D's build, I think, and so I think that was kind of a part of it. And I know he's in the movie, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I dug it. I also really loved that he and Luke had this like side adventure where he was like still with the rebellion and the Alliance like that. Now in canon, like Lando doesn't peace out and like go do another thing. He's like, nope, we're gonna rebuild the Republic.
He stuck around. Yeah. Do you think that those adventures happened during the era before Luke was on Ahch-To, when he was like building the new Jedi, training the new Jedi? He went off on this adventure with Lando and probably other adventures too in the mix.
I think so.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I was thinking about this during the movie actually. So Luke's only disappeared for a couple of years. He wasn't gone for those 30 years, obviously, because he was like training the Jedi and like doing these other adventures and looking for Sith temples and so blah 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 blah, all that stuff. Training Leia, which we'll get back to.
Right.
So Kylo Ren's only been functioning as Kylo Ren before Force Awakens, probably 4 to 5 years, I'd say.
Yeah, I'd say 5. I'd say 5 years, and maybe Luke disappeared. I mean, he's been functioning as Kylo Ren. So do we think that Force Awakens happens like 5 years after the incident between Luke and Ben?
I think so. Something along those lines.
So Luke's been missing for about 5 years.
That's right.
Yeah, I could sign on to that. Maybe someone listening knows. Maybe there's something in a comic or a novel or something that I haven't read. Certainly, you've read more of the novels than I ever have.
Speaking of comic, would recommend the new Charles Soule Kylo Ren miniseries.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because it starts with the burning of the Jedi Temple.
Oh, great. Okay, I do want to read that story. Now that we've had the completion of Kylo's arc, I actually am even more interested in going back.
Oh, it's only one issue so far. It's only going to be 4, so there's like no catch up. You just have you're one issue behind, and it came out last Wednesday.
Right, and if it's a 5-issue miniseries, then I can read that in like an hour. So
pretty sure it's even 4. Like you could read it in it moves quickly. It's well written. Snoke's a main character. Nice. Like so you see like where it all plays out.
Let's talk Snoke, since you mentioned him.
All right.
So was Snoke?
I knew it.
We saw the back to tank with the Snoke parts floating.
Mm-hmm.
Was Snoke a puppet created by the Emperor, or was Snoke, as had been sort of bandied about as a theory, was Snoke sort of a deformed, failed clone of the Emperor?
Oh, okay. So I had always kind of worked under the assumption that he was a failed clone, right? But I don't think that's the case anymore.
Okay.
I think he is a literal creation of the Emperor as a puppet to like do the things he needed to do because the Emperor was stuck to a machine.
So he like created a Frankenstein to go be his body out and do his bidding, his drone, his puppet.
Basically.
Okay.
Because there's a line in that Charles Soule miniseries or something where Luke Skywalker is actually the reason that Snoke is deformed. So, yeah. So, and there's no story behind it yet. Like, I don't know, like, where that comes from.
Sure, but like a line that referenced that.
A line that referenced that, like, sorry about what, like, Luke did to your face, basically.
Oh, okay.
And so he is, so that, like, deformed clone, he could still technically be a clone of the Emperor, like, just not, like, a fully formed one.
Sure.
But he looks the way he looks because of Luke.
I'm trying to remember, did the ones in the back of the tank have the messed up face?
Kinda, yeah. But not like they didn't have that big split down their forehead.
Okay. Yeah.
And so and Snoke's backstory had never been revealed. He knew he came from the outer regions, and that's pretty much it.
That's it.
And so, and that's where Exegol. I knew it sounded like a.
It sounds like hexagon.
Yeah, it sounded like geometry, but I couldn't remember.
Exegol.
So that is in the outer regions. So
right.
This
way
uncharted planet. So anyway, so are you satisfied that with Snoke just being a puppet, and that's like Yeah,
It's
I
fine.
am too.
It's fine. It's fine. It does feel like a lot of things were like they didn't know where they were going with them in episode 7. And that is still kind of clear. Like it's if you really look, you can kind of see the seams.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't even. They're not really well stitched seams.
Not super well. But so like if I was gonna again lovingly criticize, I would point those things out. I'd point out that like it's pretty clear that they didn't know who Snoke was going to be when they started out. I don't think they knew who Rey was going to be when they started out. I don't think they knew. I can think of other things too, but it's pretty clear they didn't have an arc planned out when they started this. And to be fair, neither did George in 77.
That's what I think too. I mean, there are different versions of that story.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think that they had like a rough thing of like, Rey will find out who she is and that will be meaningful. Like very, very, very rough sketch. But I think I would prefer, and I hope that going forward, because I think we can all agree, I've been saying this for a long time, and now having seen this film, we're going to get more stories with Rey, Poe, and Finn.
100%.
I do have a theory of how they're going to structure that, that I'll get to in a second. But if we're going to get more of those films, I do want them to have an idea of where it's going. I want them to have like a blueprint of like, here are the things we're going to hit. Like, obviously there'll be changes along the way, but I do hope that we get some sort of a blueprint so that it's not just sort of winging it and you see them pretty sharply take turns. Like The Last Jedi was a turn. And and at the time, I and still say like that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. But I do think for like the smoothness of the flow of this trilogy, it feels a little out of place now.
Yes, I'm 100% with you, because even though, like, let's say George didn't have everything exactly mapped out, there were some things that were still in his brain. Like the Emperor was in charge of the Empire all the way back in the Force, all the way back in A New Hope.
Mentioned
the Emperor has dissolved the Senate. Blah 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 blah. Oh, that's my that's not my Tarkin. That's my Obi-Wan.
Grand Moff Obi-Wan.
The Emperor has dissolved. That's better. I had to go higher, less nasally. But anyway, so some of that was mapped. Like maybe Vader and Luke's relationship wasn't mapped, and like you can see those seeds in the prequels where like all of a sudden they're like Master Yoda trained me. Enter Qui-Gon, and you're like,
sure,
what?
Sure,
who's
absolutely.
this guy?
Absolutely, yeah. Or Leia remembering her mother, like things like this. Yeah.
Like they don't. Star Wars never exactly matches up. And actually, I want to go back to that the New York Times review, actually, because they said something in it, and I actually meant to text it to you yesterday, and I forgot. I want to see if I can find the exact line. It was written by A.O. Scott. If anybody wants to follow him, he's a great reviewer.
I'm putting it in the show notes.
Excellent. And so he says, most we have grown to fond. Oh, okay. So, at least since Return of the Jedi, the point of each chapter has been consolidation rather than distinction. For a single film to risk being too interesting would be to imperil the long-term strategy of cultivating a multi-generational, multinational fandom. The Rise of Skywalker, Episode 9, in case you got lost count, is one of the best. Also, one of the worst. Perfectly middling. It all amounts to the same thing.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a very interesting point of view.
Yeah, it's I agree with him from a certain point of view. Just to that Star Wars franchises work because none of them really stand out from one another. That's why people debate which one's the best one all the time. And
sure.
Rise of Skywalker is just tied for fourth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just
that's so perfectly said. Tied for fourth. Yeah.
That's from the New York Times article. I cannot claim
really?
that as my own. I'm pretty sure that was from there. Maybe it's from my brain. No, I'm pretty sure that it's like, everyone's got their favorite. Let's say it's Empire, and then you got your second favorite, and then you got your third, and then everyone's like, nope, after that they're all fourth place.
It is here in the article. Yeah. The only result could be a 9-way tie for fourth place. Yep.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yep.
So mine's a little bit different. Like, but even then, like, I was looking at my own Star Wars ranking yesterday, and I was like, all right, this one's first, and this one's second, and this one's third, and I'm like, no, this one's third, or is it this one? Is it this one.
It's become way too hard to rank them, and it's always hard for me to rank things, but like it's become way too hard. It's way too complicated. I will say, I do, even after the second viewing, I do think that I enjoy The Mandalorian more. Or The Mandalorian feels more in place with Star Wars.
Yep.
Than the sequel trilogy does. I feel like they nailed the feeling of the world and the galaxy of Star Wars in The Mandalorian in a way that the sequel trilogy has not quite.
I have a theory about that. And I think I have facts about it. One, Dave Filoni. Dave Filoni is a huge part of that. And Jon Favreau is not getting enough credit. He is the showrunner. Agreed. So Jon Favreau is a huge part of that. Dave Filoni is another part of that. Deborah Chow is a huge part of that now.
She has been fantastic, and that makes me so excited for the Obi-Wan series that she's going to be showrunning.
So excited for the Obi-Wan series. I was before I saw her episodes. Now I'm like, just give Deborah Chow everything.
Give her everything.
This is great. She's so good. Oh my gosh. But anyway, so
I think Deborah Chow and Dave Filoni are the future of cinematic Star Wars, by the way.
Me too. Dave Filoni should have been the future of cinematic Star Wars from the beginning.
I think he's finally getting that recognition, and I hope he becomes like the Feige.
But that's what's missing from. You could argue that Kathleen Kennedy is supposed to be the Feige, but she's really not.
Yes,
because Feige gets Marvel.
Yes.
Like he understands the property to which he's working, and she gets a lot of Star Wars, but she's not, say, like a fan.
Yeah.
The way that Feige's he reads comics every week. Like, I mean, and like, I think it's like the way that maybe we read comics every week. And we're like, yeah, I read them every week. And that means I have about 200, that I'm like backlogged on.
But he's up to date, and he is was a fan from the beginning. Kathleen Kennedy was not a fan from the beginning. She was one of George's producers from the beginning. So she was like on the creative team in a sense from the beginning, or from very early on.
Mm-hmm.
But she's not a fan in the same way. And I hear a lot of vilifying of Kathleen Kennedy that I think is totally uncalled for and totally unfair.
I absolutely agree.
She is one of the most successful producers in Hollywood and should be recognized as such. And
she's a nice lady, too.
And just And also just a human being with feelings and shouldn't have things said about her.
Yep. I 100% agree. And don't, everyone shut up. She's also given you The Mandalorian.
Right.
That's also Kathleen Kennedy.
Right.
And you know what? She gave you Rogue One, too.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Right. Exactly.
She does. It's just that she's not a story person the way that she's a business person.
It's also maybe she doesn't want to tell the same stories that you want to hear, but that doesn't make her a bad storyteller or a bad person.
That is also absolutely true.
Anyway, That's my little rant about Kathleen Kennedy. But more to the point about Dave Filoni.
It's really more like your little defense about Kathleen Kennedy, which I enjoyed.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, in defense of Kathy Kennedy. But more to the point about Dave Filoni and him being the Feige, I think, and this is what I was saying earlier, I think that the rollout of future, big ticket Star Wars films, like not a Star Wars story films, but like banner Star Wars, we can't call them saga films anymore, I guess, but consisting of like Poe, Rey, and Finn. I think those are going to roll out more like Marvel movies, where they won't be episodes.
Mm-hmm.
They won't be, but they will have a continuing story, right? All the Marvel movies have interconnected continuing stories.
Yep.
We might get one-off movies about like a Poe movie or a Finn movie or a Jaina movie or whatever, but it will continue the story from the last movie, and you will need to see all of them for the story to line up the same way the MCU does.
Yes.
I think we're headed into more of an MCU treatment of Star Wars, and a couple of years ago, I would have been, even a year ago, I might have been against that. But
now not so much.
Now not so much, because I'm okay with they've wrapped up the Skywalker saga, even though Rey's a Skywalker. It's not the original Skywalkers. The Luke and Anakin story is done.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're ready for a new era. I'm excited for a new era, and I kind of think that makes the most sense for them going forward. I think they wanted to move away from the episode numbers anyway.
Yes, they did. They were trying to move away from the episode numbers at The Force Awakens, remember?
Yes, because they haven't been using the episode numbers in marketing whatsoever. The only place the episode numbers appear is in the crawl of the film and nowhere else.
Right. That's fine.
That's
you
fine.
Continue to do that, though.
That's
I mean,
fine. They
whatever.
Can, they can still do a crawl. They can still do, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. They can do all those things. I have a feeling we may be moving away from the crawl and those things, because we didn't get one in Solo. Did we get one in Rogue One? No,
nope.
Right?
Mm-mm.
So
nope.
I think they may be pulling back from that, and the 9 episodes are done, and a lot of a lot of those tropes of Star or hallmarks of Star Wars maybe are going to be like, well, we used to do that in that era, but that era is over now, so here's the new era.
And that's okay. I mean,
I'm okay with that.
An opening crawl does not make Star Wars. Like, it's part of it, but now there are 9 movies where you can read a crawl, you know?
And that's almost more special that way.
Yes.
It's like, this is the, the crawl was for this story, this long 9-episode story, but that story's been told now.
Mm-hmm. I think not just like we talked about, they're going maybe the Marvel route of interconnected universe storytelling. That's kind of how most franchises have moved.
Yeah.
We used to be in. You can watch the trend. It used to be one movie, then you make a sequel, and nothing's connected, so on and so forth. Or you have trilogies, and it's a set trilogy. Like, bam, it's done. We've done our 3. We're moving on. We've done our quad, and we're moving on. Things like that. And then Marvel came along and reinvigorated the interconnected universe. And so.
But I think the most important thing about Marvel, the thing that they've done the most well, is to have a story plotted out for. It's going to be a long, sort of indeterminate number of films, but we know where we're going with them.
And it took Marvel time to figure that out too, because if you watch Phase 1, not everything lines up.
No, they figured it out around Phase 2.
Yes, yeah, it took a little bit of time, but they've done the grunt work, and so now another company within Disney can kind of benefit from that storytelling device. I mean, Daisy Ridley said she can't imagine returning to Star Wars after this movie. She's like, that was one of her lines in an interview.
Yeah.
However, I think that if she said, yeah, I would love to do more Star Wars, I'm definitely going to do more, that would ruin a lot of the tension in the movie if you knew she was coming back, because she died. And I was like, well, that was it. That was like, they really did that. And they did that to me twice.
Yeah.
Like, I really thought that she had killed Kylo, and I really thought that they had killed her. I was like, that's the end.
I thought they'd really killed Chewie.
I, for some reason, did not. I don't. Oh, know why I know they didn't? Because one of the trailers has him flying with Lando, and I hadn't seen that scene
that's
yet.
Right. I didn't even think about that in the moment. I was so caught up in her, force pulling a transport that I was like, oh my God,
so cool.
Did it. I really liked this this story of Rey struggling with the dark side and realizing she's taken it too far. I loved the Force lightning. I wasn't even thinking yet about her being potentially a Palpatine. So when I saw the Force lightning, it didn't make me think, oh my God, she must be a Palpatine. It just made me think like, wow, she has dipped. She was using the Force so intensely, and she dipped into the anger side of the Force. She dipped into the dark side, and it resulted in lightning, right? And that's how she took it too. Like, oh man, I'm losing control. I'm losing control of my emotions. I need to go be alone like Luke did forever until I die.
Yep. Yep, because that is the Jedi. I maintain that is the Jedi way.
That's the Jedi way. Go out into the desert. Go away from civilization, like Obi-Wan, like Luke, like Yoda. Just go be a hermit.
Yep. Go be a hermit. Go be John the Baptist. Go eat some locusts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Go eat some porks.
I love that they were back even for the briefest amount of time, because they're one of my favorite creatures in all of.
I like them too.
Did you speaking of creatures, did you catch the second Mark Hamill character?
No.
The guy with the horns at the beginning, they were like, win the war.
Oh,
that guy?
Was Mark Hamill?
That was Mark Hamill. Uh-huh.
No
Mark Hamill.
way.
Yep. Confirmed too.
Wow.
Yeah. I heard it yesterday, and I was like, that's Mark Hamill. I'm almost positive. And then I looked online, and I was like, yep, there he is. That's Mark Hamill.
Never would have pegged that. Wow. And now I'm looking forward to seeing it again for that alone.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay, cool. That's really cool. I love that. There were a lot of a lot of people doing voiceovers, like famous people who got I think did stormtroopers and stuff.
So actually, I was trying to pin some of those names, not excluding the Jedi. I was
Jedi
trying
was
to
really cool, but yes.
Yeah. Who were some of the people?
Well, I mean, they weren't huge celebrities, but they were sort of oh, that person George Harrison's son is a stormtrooper.
Really?
Randomly. He's in England, so I guess, I don't know if he's friends with JJ or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But there were people of sort of that level. I heard Ed Sheeran might have been a stormtrooper.
Oh, yes. I think that's been confirmed,
yeah,
actually. He's a little short for a stormtrooper. But, yeah. Yeah, I was trying to pin some of those voices. I couldn't exactly. Have you looked up the Jedi who are voiced at the end by any chance?
Yes, I have.
With the names, because I did stay through the credits per your instruction.
Yes.
To read all the actors who came back, and so you got your Hayden Christensen, you've got your Samuel L. Jackson, and your Liam Neeson, Ewan McGregor,
yes,
and
Alec
Guinness. Yep. Ray.
He used the same clip from Force Awakens.
Yep. That's good.
Frank Oz, of course.
Frank Oz, yeah.
You had Freddie Prinze Jr., who played Kanan.
Yep, I heard him distinctly too, and I heard Ahsoka.
Ahsoka, Ashley Eckstein.
Thank you. Yep.
Ayla Secura, voiced by Jennifer Hale. Luminara, voiced by Olivia Dabo.
Those are names.
Those are names that are known from like animated series and people who like know the Jedi who are in the background of the prequels, but they never necessarily or never had like, I mean, they were like background characters, right? Background Jedi.
Sure, but explored in Clone Wars. Ayla Secura is like explored famously.
Ayla's in Clone Wars quite a bit, I believe.
Yeah, she's one of the people. She's one of the ones gunned down in Order 66. You can see it on film, like the big mushroom Wizard of Oz planet.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, she's a Twi'lek.
Yeah. So we even got some of the sort of less well known ones were thrown in there for atmosphere.
Yes, I meant Alice in Wonderland, not Wizard of Oz. I don't know why I said Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
There's
like mushrooms in Monkey Land, aren't there?
Potato, tomatoes, whatever. Yeah.
But yeah, Liam Neeson. I don't know if we mentioned Liam Neeson, but yeah.
He has a very distinctive voice. So
yes, that one stood out for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I love that Ewan McGregor's line was a mirror of what he said in The Force Awakens. These are your first steps.
These are your last steps.
These are your final steps or last
final steps. Yeah. Go ahead,
please.
No. I don't have anything to. Go ahead.
There was a lot of mirroring. JJ did a lot of bookending.
Yes.
Right. Like the whole conversation with Ben and Han, which like, can you believe that Harrison Ford was in this movie and no one knew it?
No one, literally nobody. My theater gasped.
Yeah, mine too. Yeah. He was that conversation was a mirror of their conversation in The Force Awakens. Like they were out on a platform, and a lot of Kylo's lines were the same lines. Your son is dead. I know what I need to do, but I don't know if I have the courage to do it. Like he said the same things. It was a mirror image of that same conversation, down to the fact that like in The Force Awakens they were in darkness, and in the Rise of Skywalker they were in a brightly lit, open air. Just very much like the two sides of the same coin. This scene, how it could have gone, how it should have gone in The Force Awakens, almost.
Yeah, it was even shot from the same angle.
Yes,
actually, which I really appreciated. Like they were positioned the same way on the ledge. Like
he was holding his lightsaber in the same way. All that stuff. Like,
there was a lot of that. There was a lot of that even in movie, because JJ's really big on lighting cues and telling you things by lighting and juxtaposing different positions together. That bridge scene in Force Awakens is like a perfect example of like Kylo's face is in blue and red the whole time, and then when he decides to murder Han, it goes to red before he does it, and like all this. He's very good at that. And he does it again here in Rise of Skywalker, where Rey is she's cast all in blue when the truth is revealed to her, and the lighting hits her in the same face. It's like a low key, and like half of her face is in shadow. And then like in her like darkest, like, this is your heritage. I'm, like you're a Palpatine. You're this. I'm trying to be quiet because my wife is in the house. She hasn't seen the movie yet, so I don't want to like
okay, fair.
spoil anything for her. But like, and then at the end when she turns around, she's like, when it comes back to, I am all the Jedi, I'm at this, I'm at that. It's the same exact lighting, same exact blue, lit the same way, but her face, she's on a close up, and her face is a completely opposite emotion. But it hits it, but like you could frame them side by side and see her like path to that. It was so good. These are the things that make it like these. because you watch the movie for like the plot and like what cool things happen the first time, and then you start to see like cinema happen in front of you. You start to see the techniques that JJ is using to tell a really good story, and that's why I think it like elevated in my book for me, because he is a good filmmaker. He's a very good filmmaker.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And
I really did. I feel like the Rotten Tomatoes score is a little harsh. It's sitting still around 58%. I think it's a little harsh, but not that far off.
No,
I would give it more of like a 70. Like it's got, Star Wars starts at like it's got like for me anyway, it's always gonna like start around like 40. Like you can't do much worse than that.
Yeah,
and then it just builds up from there, right? So it's almost like you get points in the SAT just for showing up, and then your score builds up from there.
Sure,
it's kind of how it is for me.
Yeah, if you look, I think sometimes we look at the Rotten Tomatoes algorithm like 0 to 100 as like you would in school. Like if you get anything below like a 60, you failed. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, I certainly wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't apply that metric.
Right, and so you look at it, you would look at a 58 and be like, well, that's a failure. Like it's not an A, B, C, or D. It's an F. But that's not really how the number system works. It's literally in the middle. Like so, 58 is like, it's middling. It's neither great nor terrible. It's right in the middle.
Right,
and it maybe falls a little bit on the lower scale of maybe where you want it. But I would pretty much put this at. I'd probably put it at like a 60. Like maybe.
Let's put it this way. What letter grade would you give this movie?
I'd give it a C.
I give it like a B minus.
Yeah.
Like not
maybe
terrible,
a C plus.
Not bad, but like there's plenty going for it. I really, really liked it, and I have a feeling I'm going to like it more the more I watch it.
Yeah, I mean, technically speaking, like I also give the Phantom Menace a C, but it's one of my favorites. And I know controversial. I know. But I think Phantom Menace is one of the better looking Star Wars because it's not fully digitized yet.
Fair.
And I think the story structure, like I like the space politics part of Star Wars. I actually miss that part of Star Wars where they've been pretty much avoiding it, and I like when they're arguing about stuff and the formation of the Empire and things like that. Like it's interesting to me, and so this new trilogy, I'm kind of like, well, I mean, space adventures are fun and everything, but I kind of like the boardroom stuff too.
They still have prequelitis though. Disney does, so we're not going to see that anytime soon.
No, I don't think, which is a shame because there's a huge conglomerate of Star Wars fans out there who were like built on those prequels, who are absolutely fine with space politics, and
I think they'll come around. Fine. I think a time will come where like the prequel generation will become
in charge.
Storytellers. Yeah, in charge. Yeah. But for now, I look forward to like the Filoni, Favreau, Deborah Chow. Like I look forward to that. Those folks really taking over in the cinematic universe. Yeah, and seeing what they do.
Agreed. Speaking of the, I wanted to go back to this when we were talking about Marvel. Rise of Skywalker was shot on 35 millimeter, and if you want to get really like cinema technical, I really appreciate that, because if we're comparing it to Marvel, and this is like because the two big franchises, whatever, that rake in the money, Marvel's shot digitally.
Yes,
and if you're looking, I mean, it might mean almost nothing, but colors and blacks show up more on film. And so like when they're in the Sith temple and everything is really black and really dark, and like there's a big contrast between light and everything like that, you don't get that in digital. You can only get it on film.
That's right.
That's why if you line up Marvel films, a lot of them look gray almost, like even the darkest darks are still kind of gray. They just don't get that depth of saturation, and that's why I just think it just looks so good. So I hope they continue to shoot in 35 millimeter, because one, it's keeping Kodak in business, but two, I like you can't beat the color contrast that JJ brings out.
I love the look of film. I have to say, I saw this film first in like just standard.
Yep.
I don't really like 3D, so I try to avoid 3D as much as I can. I saw it in standard first, and then or like Dolby Atmos, I guess. And then I saw it in IMAX 2D, and it looked superb in IMAX 2D. Like outstanding. So if anyone hasn't seen it or plans on seeing it again, I mean, if you haven't seen it, I hope you weren't listening to this. But if you plan on seeing it again, if you can find an IMAX 2D screening where you are, I would really recommend it. It looks fan-freaking-tastic in IMAX. It just really pops.
Maybe that'll be my next. Maybe that'll be my next time.
Nice.
I don't know.
We should probably wrap things up soon, but what other things haven't we mentioned that we want to get out there? We're going to talk about this movie. I think we'll probably do like a follow-up episode maybe in a week or so, week or two. I think we should, because I think there's just so much to be said. But what things must we say today?
That first planet that Kylo is on is Mustafar, apparently.
Oh, okay. I like that.
The opening scene. Yeah, I wish that there was a bit of Vader's castle somewhere.
Oh, yeah, that would have been cool.
That would have been super cool. I mean, I assumed it's been ransacked in the 30-plus years since Vader has been dead.
I'm sure Kylo has ransacked it and taken every
oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. Yeah, but
every little memento he could find.
Yeah, but apparently it was supposed to be Mustafar, which is pretty cool.
That's cool. I did feel like the battle on Endor with all the water felt like water Mustafar. Like it was the Mustafar battle, but in water.
Yes. We haven't actually two things we before we wrap up, because two things we've actually not talked about at all. Kylo's redemption.
Yes.
We have not talked about that. We have not talked about Leia at all.
True.
So I think we should cover, and Luke for that matter. So we should cover those things quickly.
Yes,
we've talked about Kylo's redemption off air, so I'm going to say the same thing I said to you, just so it's on record. All Ben Solo wanted to be was his grandpa, Anakin Skywalker. He wanted to be Darth Vader in the worst way. That's why he looks the way he looks. He acts the way he acts, so on and so on and so on. Ironically, Ben Solo sacrifices his life for somebody else after for part of his absolution, his, whatever. So, he does, ironically, become his grandfather that way. Where he wants to be Darth Vader, but he becomes Anakin Skywalker by the end, where he gives of his life force to Rey, right? So, Mandalorian introduced force healing to the cinematic, Star Wars, and not just the paper one. Force healing's been around. That's not new. It's just new for the screen.
Right.
And so I love that. And there's a lot of tell in that, where Rey keeps flexing the hand to which she used to heal the big sand snake. So she says she gave part of her life force to the snake. And so Kylo uses all of his life to bring Rey back, which in some ways negates death in Star Wars now. If you think but I mean, sort of, because you are giving of your life for somebody else's, laying down your life. There's no greater act of love, so on and so on and so on.
Yeah.
So I liked that bit of redemption for him, because if he just showed up and helped her win, that does not negate that he's killed a lot of people, and he was in on the First Order, and that he murdered his father, and there's a lot that he has to absolve for, and his showing up at the end in a ripped T-shirt that's not going to be the thing that does it, but giving his life so she can live, that's a thing. Yeah, and I really
the same way his
that.
grandfather did.
Exactly. Yeah, Vader can't just be and now everyone will love me because I did this. Nope, you killed a lot of people, Darth Vader. You were a terrible, terrible person. So, I think that was great That was a good wrap up on him. Although I am bummed if there are more stories with these characters. That's it for Adam Driver, because he is an immense talent, and I will miss him.
Yeah, it is too bad. But I feel like we don't need a Kylo Ren movie.
Nope.
I feel like that's that might still happen in comics. We might still get more like, things that were happening during the First Order era in a comic or a novel or something, but I don't know if we'll see it on the screen.
No, I don't think so either.
I don't know if I need it.
I don't think I need it either. I wouldn't mind. I mean, I'll always read a comic or a book or whatever, but on the screen, that it'll feel like a force. Huh.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah. So there's that. And as for Leia, I think that they worked with what they had pretty masterfully, and that was tough. And I was a little confused the first time as to like why she died, but she reached out with everything she had left to talk to Ben, right? Across space and time. She reached out with everything she had to die. And I read that Rise of Resistance book, and now that this
yes. I enjoyed your read up episode on it.
Oh, thank you. What I didn't mention on that episode, which I will mention here, is that she had never really fully recovered from her jaunt in space, where she was still kind of ill and weak. And so for her to reach out like that is like she never really recovered, which they don't say in the movie, but like, I mean, she doesn't move very much, obviously, because of what they were working with. But
right.
There's a part of like she didn't have the vigor that she had before, and this was kind of the end. That was kind of the end of that.
That's interesting. That makes a lot of sense that she hadn't quite recovered from that yet.
Yeah. But I thought it worked very well.
Impressive and very most impressive. What they were able to do with what they had.
Yep. And the training sequence between Luke and Leia, hands down, one of the best things I've watched in Star Wars.
What a surprise. I was not expecting anything like that. I was not really expecting to find out that Leia had trained as a Jedi. We always knew she was powerful in the Force, but I didn't ever think that she would have formally trained.
And why she never completed her training.
Why she didn't follow through. But it gave her what she needed to train Rey.
That's right. Yeah, that plus the books and everything. And I love that because people were really bummed that she didn't train, because that was a big Legends thing, original Star Wars canon. And then they opted not to go in that direction, and then Rian Johnson did the thing with the Force. And this was one of those times where they didn't ignore what he did, but they validated it.
They built on it.
They built on it quite well. And also the helmet that Rey uses in her training sequence is the same one Leia is wearing in that training sequence, by the way, which is cool.
That makes sense. Leia would have given it to her.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
She would have had it. And I like that Luke had her lightsaber.
Yes.
And that it's buried and all that. We have more to explore. We're not
much. But yes, but I loved all of that. I was not expecting to enjoy the Leia piece. I thought it would feel more shoehorned than it did. It really felt pretty, especially on subsequent viewing.
It works better the second time.
It fits.
Yeah.
It works. It does.
Yeah,
work.
it works really well. What I don't think works is Chewie getting the medal. That's so strange to me.
It's a little funny, but it's kind of heartwarming at the same time, because it's for fan. That's pure fan service of like, he didn't get a medal in the first one, so now he gets his medal. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I don't mind that I don't mind it nearly as much as I mind the Reylo kiss, which we don't really have time to talk about. But I really didn't care for that.
No, I didn't care for that either. I think you had said that it's like a goodbye almost, as opposed to like a I love you kind of thing. It's
I didn't say that, but
somebody said that to me, where it's like a thank you kiss, as opposed to a like I love you, can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you.
Second time I watched it, I literally had the thought, how hard would it be for like a fan to just edit out that one shot of the kiss? Like, does the scene still work if it's like they're looking into each other's eyes and then he keels over? And like, you know what? It does work. You could just, like a fan edit could just pull that right out and it wouldn't affect anything.
Yeah, but I think that was one of the things from the whiteboard.
Totally, it absolutely was, because so many fans wanted that. They weren't going to give it to them full force, but they would give them a nod.
Yeah,
here's your Reylo moment.
Didn't like it.
I didn't like it.
There's a kiss in every Star Wars though, or every Star Wars trilogy.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So we got one now. There you go.
There you go.
All right. Well, I guess we really should wrap up. So, Frank, where can the people find us?
You can find us at beerwithgeeks.com. We just published our holiday special last week. I hope you enjoyed that. All of our shows crossed over. All of our shows from thoughtbubbleaudio.com. So I hope you enjoyed that little Christmas card from us to you. We are on Apple Podcasts, on Stitcher, on Spotify, everywhere podcasts are found. You can tweet at us at Beer with Geeks or email us beerwithgeeks@gmail.com. I think we're going to take a little bit of a break here as we head into the new year. So will be no new episode the week of New Year's, but we'll be back right after that, taking a little holiday break. But thank you all so much for listening. We love you all so much. It's been we're past our 5 years now, but as we hit the end of the year, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy everything, Happy New Year. We love you all. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back in 2020. This is our last podcast, I guess, of this decade.
Wow. Ooh, I'm like that we went out on Star Wars. That's pretty sweet.
Feels right.
Feels right. Feels
I have
good.
a feeling.
Feels good. I have a feeling. Oh, man. There's definitely more to talk about, and it's like sitting in the back of my brain. As soon as we're stop recording, we'll be like, no, shoot.
In 2020, we'll circle back. I think in January we should do like a part 2 of this. And just
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, because we did exactly what I think we didn't really talk about it in line with the other movies, like how it stacks, and we didn't talk about Palpatine like at all.
Yeah.
He looked great. He looked great.
He did look great. The milky eyes was a really creepy touch. I liked it.
Oh, horrifying. So anyway, but Frank, this was great. And so until next time, cheers.
Cheers.
May the Force be with you. Always.
Right? This is your last podcast.
I just stopped recording, but you can keep that in if you want.
I will.